Okay, we're off. Welcome. I'm Nick. I'm going to be your host for this evening. This is episode 21 of the KUDO community meeting. I have taken a stab at an agenda, so hopefully folks have had a chance to look at that. I'll post it in the chat real quick, the link, just in case you don't already have it open. It's probably easiest if I share my screen, right? And just share that browser window. Does that work?
I don't see your screen yet.
Yeah, I've got to figure out. If I can figure out how to share my screen, then we're good to go. Okay, well, while I figure out how to do that, let's get started with the first thing. The first thing on the meeting then is actually about the schedule itself, and that's the suggestion of alternating the time. So I believe this has been brought up before. I know there's a few people, Alina in particular, that can't make this time. I don't know if anyone has any strong opinions on this, or if we can get consensus around maybe alternating those times. So I see she's put in the suggestion there that we can alternate between maybe Wednesday and Thursday and do it earlier on a Wednesday and then maybe later on Thursday.
I'm fine with earlier. I think the West Coast is probably where Fabio and those are probably the ones that are limiting on that end.
It's fine with me.
Good work, Nick.
I can wake up and a meeting and then go back to sleep.
Okay, so what we're saying then, what times work for people on a Wednesday?
The other time that we've done is 2 hours earlier than this one. I think that's when Jared's meeting and some of the teams have scrum of scrums on Thursdays.
Right.
We could do 3 hours earlier, which would put it at 7 a.m. West Coast. I don't know how Justin company feel about that.
Or maybe alternate it and do 2 hours early on a Wednesday?
Yeah, the day switch is always, I think, more, from my end, more problematic than, because I forget which day. At least now I got that Thursday in my head is KUDO day.
Yeah.
So I would prefer the same day, different times, rather than different days and different times.
Okay. Well, I'll stick something in the Slack channel in a bit then, and see if we can get general agreements, and then maybe whoever owns the calendar appointment could update that. Okay. So community update. So Matt sends his apologies because he is, as we're talking right now, giving a presentation at a meetup in Sofia, I think. Looks like a good turnout from that picture on Twitter. We've been trying to get some meetups organised in the calendar across North America. I see, Ken, that you've managed to work something out to attend the one in Minneapolis in a week or so. So that's really cool.
Yeah, Wednesday there's a 30-minute opportunity in
awesome. Yeah. So there's a few others that are on there as well. Michael Tannenbaum pinged me earlier as well. He's happy to attend some of these. So if there's nobody else here in this meeting right now that wants to pick a few of those off, then I'll maybe send this list his way and see if he can attend a few.
I believe I was assigned the Colorado one on August 7th. I think we were waiting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the one. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I do believe we were waiting on them to confirm though. So
okay, I'll chase it up with Matt then once he's back online later on. I know he's been doing some additional coordination there. Okay. And then Tom, you can't do any of the. There's a couple that you said you might be able to do, but I understand you can't make any of those.
Family, that week in September is no good. So I'll go back and propose later dates. And those are in Europe syntax, correct?
Oh, correct. Yeah.
Two of them don't matter, which is fortunate, but just making sure.
Okay.
I will get back to you guys next week, hopefully.
Cool. All right. Yeah, but good to keep those moving. Seems we've got interest from a few of the organisers. All right. So the next thing that I stuck on the agenda was a recap of the 0.3.2 release that was released 6 days ago, I believe. I don't know if there's anything in particular on that list of changes that people want to talk about. Obviously, one of my changes got in there, which I was quite pleased with. Seems it got some decent feedback from Ken. Nice and positive. That's what we like. Otherwise, I don't know if there's anything in particular that people want to call out or talk about for that release.
Yeah, to add to that, I guess, some of our tutorials and documentation have used master for the CRDs that need to be installed. And that was resolved here. We fixed that to be off tags and off releases. That should make more dependable demos. And there's a number of bug fixes on that release.
So is there some documentation related work that needs to be put in as well to sync that up, or was that taken care of?
The part that I'm out of the loop on is Jared was refactoring how we're doing our website, and that website was going to be based on a specific release version, and I don't know where we're at with that. So
okay, maybe we'll sync up with Jared then and see what his master plan is for that when he resurfaces.
Yeah, but one interesting thing to add there is if you then try to install and get actually the KUDO 0.32 running in your cluster, that you go into that release branch, and basically you have to like change the installation URL from what CRDs and deployments and so forth have to be installed. So that is coming with that change. It's not automated yet, but like that's what we did for this one. So in case if you wonder how to actually run 0.32, it's a little bit out of sync with what the homepage says, but for those who want, they can go in there. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right then. So moving on to the 0.40 release, there's a bunch of issues that have been tagged with the 0.40 milestone on GitHub. I don't know if anyone wants to take the lead here and talk about a few of these and how this is coming together.
Looks like they're all by Alina. No, there's one with Justin. The framework versions and instances can raise part. Justin, maybe. If he's on the call.
Yeah, that's a bug that Alina's working on as well. So yeah, that one's causing some flaky tests.
Okay. Any others on this list that people want to call out and discuss real quick? Nope.
We had planned on Helm being available as part of the 0.40, but I haven't had any availability to start implementing that. So
that was the ability to extend Helm charts, right?
First to just run Helm charts, and then extending charts was going to come in 0.50, but I haven't had any time. So
okay.
I don't know that that's going to be out there. I think there was a different Slack channel where someone asked about that today. And someone had mentioned that it was planned for 0.40, but currently unless someone else has been tackling it, Ken is maybe interested in it. I don't know that that'll be available for 0.40.
Yeah, I think 0.40 is probably in jeopardy a bit. A lot of it's been slipping. Two major features were Helm and repository management type stuff. And we've been mainly working towards getting, reducing the flaky tests on our test harness, fixing bugs mainly in the engine, I'll just call it the engine, and making sure that the next release of the operator for Kafka is meeting what we consider a minimal viable product. So that's pretty much consumed our time this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're a little short-staffed with Jared and someone else being out on paternity leave. And
Yeah, okay. So just skipping back as well, am I understanding there's going to be if I look at, wasn't there a critical bug in 032 that was going to be back, wasn't there going to be an 033 release? Did I see that right?
Yeah, I think there was one planned, but like I don't want to speak for other people, but I think what I have back in my mind was that fixing this one still takes a little bit longer, so that's why we haven't cut the 033.
Yeah, okay. Which bug was that? Can you remember?
So I know that one is in the deletion. So we have a validation phase for the zookeeper operator, and there was a weird behavior essentially when you try to run that validation phase. So KUDO spit some error messages. So that is some that I'm aware of. The other one was that with common labels. Maybe that got already merged, but Alina probably knows more about it, and we can follow up in the Slack channel about this one.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's a shame she can't attend this one because she's obviously been super busy this week on a variety of things. So next up on the agenda, I've stuck aside a bunch of time for any updates or general conversation around any open PRs. So there's a fair number on there. Again, a lot of these are work that Elena's been working on. Oh yeah, there's one you were talking about just now, Fabian. Yeah, okay. Is there anyone here that people want to talk about or discuss? Or call attention to or get more eyes on?
I can talk about the 599, but
yeah,
I let other people step forward too. Okay, so what I discovered, or the behavior to catch on there, is that in the zookeeper operator, we added the validation phase, or there was already a validation phase. We just like patched little things up here and there, so that this shop that is being launched just finishes when actually zookeeper domains can be resolved. That's important for the service discovery. I ran into that, for instance, when I tried to build the Flink demo, and it needs zookeeper and then it needs Kafka. So Kafka needs, for instance, zookeeper as well. So what happened was, as soon as there was a zookeeper instance deployed, essentially it ran immediately to Kafka without actually waiting for zookeeper to be fully operational. And so that's what this validation phase does. So every framework developer should or operator developer can use that validation phase in the constraints within their operator. And so for the zookeeper one, what we actually do is we just wait for that job to finish until it can resolve those domains, because that's what Kafka needs. And so Kafka was when it started failing and ran into this crashback loop. And so we just say, okay, start with Kafka once you can resolve those domains. So while we did this, we noticed that for the start that for some reason the validation job was never really being launched. And then we fixed that, we thought we fixed that. And then what happened though was that when we tried to resize parameters, it ran into an issue that it cannot change. That's the immutable field error. It cannot change some parameters within that job. So, and this is what potentially this 599 PR should fix here. I saw that there was some test harness tests that failed. That was for the deletion part. So because we changed a little bit the logic there, but in a nutshell, I just abstracted the logic, how to deal with the deletion of jobs and in general with jobs and parameter changes out. And those are the, 20 lines of codes that are in that PR. And if you want to run it, the expected behavior essentially is if you start zookeeper, first all of the instances of zookeeper get created. Then once they're up and running, it then starts the validation job. And the validation job makes sure it can resolve the zookeeper domains. And after that is done, this job, if there's a delete Boolean set, has been deleted. And then you do a change to zookeeper. For instance, you resize the CPU, and that's one of the tests in the KUDO builder operator repository. You go and resize that CPU parameter to, for instance, from 300 milliseconds to 200. And then you expect not just like that the new zookeeper instances reflect that change, but you also expect that another validation job comes up and actually tests it and makes sure that that actually works. So like framework developers could then also write more validation tests in that validation phase, for instance, to make sure that if there was a change of a parameter, that this change is actually in all of the pods reflected, for instance, depending on the business logic of the operator, of course. And this is, if you scroll a little bit up, you see the kubectl output with this KUDO test concise in this namespace. So you see in the beginning, it prints up all of the zookeeper instances, the 0, the 1, the 2. And then once all of those threes are running, that's reflected when you see 1, 1, then you see the validation job starts. And then the validation job also finishes with the state with completed. And then for that test here, it then like it adds the parameter changes. And then you see also that there's another validation job started that validates then again. And so that's kind of the behavior that I would expect for KUDO to do here. And yeah, that wasn't the case before. So that's why this is also a little bit more explaining on how and why. And hopefully I saw there were already some comments that I haven't had time to follow all up, but yeah. Go ahead, Tristan.
Yeah, I was wondering, so this has handling specific for jobs, but why don't we just instead, like the is healthy check that you do, couldn't we just do that before we delete anything?
Well, isn't that what we do in this one there a little bit already, or what do you mean? It checks if it's healthy, and just if it's healthy, it actually goes into this in this loop. If it's not healthy, then it doesn't. The logic there is a little bit tricky.
But we have specific logic for jobs, and I'm wondering why that is. Like, why are we treating jobs special?
Jobs were different because if you modify, you can't modify a job. You need to restart it.
Yeah.
And by restarting it, you need to delete it and create it again. So we were having issues.
Yeah, but this is fixing the delete feature, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether you're using delete with the job or not.
It actually goes beyond that. It's fixing the delete feature, but also how jobs are treated. So if there's no delete Boolean set, it will still fix the behavior there, of how we deal with jobs.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the interesting thing with the is healthy part is that, for instance, sometimes we use the is healthy if a step is healthy logic with a Boolean. Sometimes we return an error message. And so that error message that in this case here, for instance, is returned, just tells you that the job is still running or failed. But maybe for some business logic, you want to know if the job is still running and you just have to wait, or actually something went wrong and it failed and you go down another route to deal with it. And so one thing if later down the road would probably be like when we're dealing with those use cases to abstract all this business logic in its own, for the state machine or whatever, in its own logic, so we can like route it in the right appropriate way. So right now everything is in the plan execution controller, and I, for the short term, just like made those little tiny incisions there. And it needs more testing, I guess. I saw that there was a test failing yesterday when I left the office, so I want to look into that more today as well. But overall, this is at least how, in my opinion, the logic should look like. And another thing for that one that we probably should do is I haven't seen much of the deletion Boolean used in other operators. I know we had an example, but are we actually using a lot the delete logic? And then for what do we need the delete logic? That is when a framework operator probably wants to have a step and then creates a pod that shouldn't last there. So then
I had put it in there when I was originally tasked with building a canary or blue-green rollout, as demonstrating how you might manage microservices in this framework. That ended up getting reprioritized, but the delete is there for cleaning up jobs that don't need to exist longer than your your plan execution is run, or try to encode blue, green, or canaries as part of your rollout procedure.
I think it's super useful, and we should keep it in there because I can think about many ways how framework developers could like play around with this one. Yeah, then the only thing is that we should probably write more tests around this. That's probably also why we missed it. That some logic in the business logic in the plan execution controller has so many nested if this then that statements. So if you do one little change, you forget an else statement, and then suddenly the whole business logic in an edge case is changed that you don't immediately catch. So what I'm doing today as well is like, for instance, here, we're testing that in the operator repository with that zookeeper test. If you scroll a little bit up, you can see how I started that test. A little bit higher. There we have it. It's the zookeeper upgrade test. And so in that test, we actually do multiple things. We just like, not just like launch a zookeeper instance, but we also resize the parameters. And we don't have a test that actually checks if there's a validation job being created and also successfully finishing and so forth. So we probably need to add more testing. So if we do changes to whatever logic and whatever we abstract or not, that those at least are like coming up to our attention. So we know that if something is broken, it's actually broken, which was a little bit tricky here with this one because it was, we made it for 032, we made a patch for that it actually honors the deletion part. But with that, it wasn't actually creating the validation job in that phase. And so then that was the catch-22. But with this one, it should be fixed. But yeah, that's all I can say about that one here.
Am I coming in? Yeah. Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not, it's a weird thing to say, you know, something in a double negative, but I'm not against the delete. What I need and what needs to be documented is what its behavior is. And what I mean by that specifically is what the rules are. So, you know, my expectation is if it is adoring a task that is a job, that means that the job is completed, that it has reached completion, and then we remove it. If the delete is adorned or decorating something else, it's very unclear and I don't know what to think about when that delete actually is meaningful. So there needs to be a lot of clarity with that, and it feels like there's a variable that has different behavior depending on what it's on, and it's not very clear at this point. Is that fair? Tom, you wanted to say something and you backed away.
Yeah, yep, I did. Then I backed away.
All right, Homer. Yeah, so I guess a future conversation, but I think the rules really matter. And the rules are like the consequences that any operation or operator developer will need to be clear about when they use it, how they use it. And to me, unless it's a job, it's unclear, and a job seems clear only that we delete it after the job finishes.
So that sounds more like a cleanup, not a delete.
And it does. I agree with that too.
So there could be use cases for both, like you want to run a job and then have the job get removed. Right now, those are two separate steps. And the first step doesn't complete until the job is healthy. Namely, is healthy for jobs determines that the job ran to completion successfully. Only then does the next step that deletes come into play. So right now, that is two separate steps in the same task. And I think that's where you see the delete as merging those concepts together.
Yeah, and I guess that's great. That's exactly the conversation, is that the delete right now feels like things are conflated and that it is unclear what it means outside of job. And when it's cleanup and it's specific to a job, then it makes a whole lot of sense.
Right, but you sometimes want to delete things even if it's not done, and like that would be like the blue-green deployment. You know, you might want to deploy a B or a green or a blue, or I forget what the right color is. Do your validation tests against that.
Yeah.
Start routing traffic, and then delete that that blue.
Yeah, see, the thing in that particular case, and that's part of my point. There's a bunch of really odd conflated things together based on that flag. If I was deleting, say, blue because validation came through with green and was successful, that delete is a delete of something that currently exists, and not the definition of what I just defined for a job. So how I'm using
that delete flag doesn't create a job in that step.
And so, yeah, I agree. But now there's different behaviors depending on what type it is.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, this might not be the forum, but it'd be great to have some design discussions around that, I think. And it's unclear.
Yeah, maybe the backup plan in MySQL is an example that would clear things up, because it runs the job and then deletes the job in 2 separate steps, and you need both steps.
Yeah. And so far, every time we've used delete, it's been on a job. I haven't seen one outside of that. So if we have a different use case, I would love to understand more details around that. And if it's supposed to only be used for jobs, then it would be great to document that. And
yeah. One interesting thing when you guys talked about this was actually like, when do we delete it? Because the idea of having something not immediately deleted is when a job runs, that you can go into the log files and maybe troubleshoot there and see the output and so forth. And so there's pretty sure a lot of potential also to maybe customize that in a way that we can add to that job, then like just delete it after time to live 100 seconds, or maybe just delete it maybe if you like, you know, right now we immediately delete it, and that makes also whatever that job did and you want to look into it not accessible anymore, I think.
Yeah, and I would go slightly further and say if this is always about jobs, which I've not seen an example for an alternative, but if it's always about jobs, then we could just have some implicits involved where if you, as part of your steps, if one of the steps is a job, there's an automatic cleanup based on some conditions that's configurable.
But that logic is exactly, or we don't have to deal with this at all, because Kubernetes takes away that logic for us already. When we create that job, that can the framework developer can do that. The time to live can be like determined in there, and then it gets just garbage collected and cleaned up. That's also an option.
Well, while that makes sense, and I still think there's room for conversation around it. It could be possible that I want to launch that job again, and that job would have to have been cleaned up prior to the second launch. It just depends. Like
that's for instance what we do in the Zookeeper one. Yep.
There's just rules, and those rules need to be understood, and then those rules need to be communicated, and that's it.
I think it would be very helpful to see this type of logic used with something that is not a job. So that can also help a little bit to iron out our understanding. Enough about deletion.
Yeah, okay, let's move on then. So are there any other updates or discussion that people want to have around any other open pull requests? I
know there are many, Elena, that we should really make sure that, I mean, yesterday when I went to bed, there were like 9 PRs. I woke up this morning to 19 PRs. Yeah. So there's again, like an explosion of activity, which is awesome. And we want to make sure that everyone who writes a PR gets also the love and the attention. So we're a little bit understaffed here, but as a call out, I think everyone should look into those PRs and give their 2 cents. Including me. It's also mea culpa.
The most important PR for me for everyone to review is the KEB for Pro. We have a Pro instance ready, and then I have a doc up describing how we'll use it. So if everyone could review that, I can start migrating us over from Circle CI.
That's 585, right?
Yep.
And Justin, I saw your fix for the test harness. I have to go test it on that other project I was working on to make sure that it works. But,
Oh, sounds good. Please do.
Cool.
And then
Okay.
that maybe we call Cap maybe for 2 seconds, or is it?
You broke up for a second then because you've gone mobile. Can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, I'm roaming right now through the office
Yeah.
to find a space where I'm not interrupted. And so the question was for the cap, the prow cap. You can hear me now good? Is that better? All right.
Yeah, you're coming through fine.
Can we talk real quick, just in 2 sentences about the cap, like the gist?
Yeah, the gist is that we would use prow for CI instead of Circle CI, and then it'll also manage our PR workflow and issue workflow and lifecycle and merging and all of that sort of thing.
That's nice. Yeah, that's exactly like, it's also more aligned with the upstream project then, right?
Yeah.
So I think I see a lot of positives now there.
There's minor changes on 4. The one that I added is the important one. Yeah. And that describes all of the different commands we'll use and all of that.
Yep. So the history on that was we were looking into that a few months back, 8 months ago already maybe, but then we decided we're not there yet. So maybe now is the point where we're actually like leveraging all of these features and the good stuff.
Yeah, a number of the Kubernetes teams have been requesting Pro, so we're starting to integrate it now that it's ready for people to use.
You're going to make a prow operator version?
That would be awesome.
Probably eventually.
Yeah, because I think from what I've heard, the installation of prow is something.
Yeah, they really, really want you to use Bazel to apply Kubernetes manifests, which I am not going to do ever. So
once we have that operator, no one uses Circle CI anymore. They use KUDO with Brow.
That would be nice. It's been Prow's got a pretty nice interface. You can see the instance already at if you want to. I think I linked it in there.
Is it somewhere? This one?
Yeah, there it is. Yep, that was fast.
Cool.
Is that prow testing more than just our KUDO?
Yeah, it actually is not testing KUDO yet.
So it wouldn't be a dedicated prow instance for KUDO.
You what?
It wouldn't be a dedicated prow instance for KUDO?
No, that was not requested, though. It's probably achievable.
I think it would make more sense to have it isolated.
But we've been, that URL is not a good example of that, but we've been trying to keep it as unbranded as possible so that it can be used for any open source project.
Yeah.
Unbranded from Mesosphere's perspective?
Yes. What would be the concerns there, other than branding?
Oh. Isolation.
Okay.
I have, this could be shocking, I've taken down a CI system accidentally.
Yeah, well, that'll be our problem, I guess.
Achievement unlocked. Took down somebody else's CI system.
I think from the from my team's perspective, it makes a lot more sense to be able to manage one cluster.
So part of me from the KUDO point of view would like that as a community resource, not as a Mesosphere resource that is partly shelled out to KUDO.
Yeah.
And that's from separation of policy. And, I know Mesosphere is funding the bill for that. But I think from the connotation side, there's something different between fronting the bill for a KUDO prow versus letting KUDO run on Mesosphere's prow.
Okay.
Matters.
What do we mean by a community resource?
Right. So the KUDO community gets to make decisions on how that Kubernetes environment that's running prow is actually configured and managed, permissions, etc.
Okay.
So the governance sits outside of a commercial entity like Mesosphere. It's owned by the community.
Right.
Yeah.
And as the only non-Mesosphere person here, maybe that's speaking from my point of view, but there always appears to be a if Google ran prow for upstream Kubernetes, there would be a different connotation on whether it's really its own open source project or whether this is just Google letting people play around with the Kubernetes they're building. And I know you guys are all on board with open sourcing and providing that as a KUDO community, and I think I think you guys want to maintain that view because that's what you guys are doing. So just throwing that out there as perception and something for you guys to look at.
All right. Well, I will. I'll bring that up with my team, and it sounds achievable. So.
Cool. So let's move on to. So I stuck a section here for another 10 minutes. I believe this meeting is supposed to be for 45 minutes, not an hour, though. Is that correct? It's in my diary for an hour, but I checked the calendar before. It's 45 minutes.
Yeah, then we start 5 minutes late, so it's really only a 40-minute meeting.
Yeah. So I understand that people need to chip off at the time that this meeting is supposed to finish, but we'll try and get through these last few points as quickly as possible. And I think we probably mostly covered these anyway, to be honest. So it was an update on any open issues, specifically anything tagged with a bug or critical. I think we've covered one or two of those already for the stuff that needs to go into the 0.33 release. Bring this up real quick. So there's a few here that have been raised quite recently. I don't know if Fabian or Ken, you want to talk about any of those?
I see a lot of red there.
I've been pretty hot on the labeling though, so maybe it's just because.
Scroll down where it's more greener. It's better for my mood today. Ah, wonderful. Thank you. Let's say that.
Wait, isn't today your birthday?
Ah, you spoiled it. Surprise. Yes.
Happy birthday.
Woohoo.
Happy birthday.
Woohoo. Yeah. Seeing later The Lion King. That's my birthday present. Very excited.
Cool. So is there anything in particular you want to talk about with any of the bugs that you've raised recently? I'm just really picking on the top two because they've been raised in the last couple of days.
Yeah. So this one, the 586, should be fixed with PR 599. That's what we talked about, the deletion topic.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Don't want to start that again.
Yep, cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this one was feedback from a customer, right?
Yeah, it was online or on
Okay.
discussion.
Yep.
Lacking some information, but I wanted to make sure we had awareness and if we had similar experiences that we could correlate around it.
Yeah, okay. One to keep an eye on then. Cool, okay. Updates on pending caps. I don't know if there's anything in particular there people want to speak to. I didn't pick out any specific items. I appreciate, like we said before, it's been a relatively slow week on some fronts, so. No, okay. So I see Michael T's just managed to join us in time. He mentioned briefly in Slack before that some of the documentation for some of the KUDO operators, in particular Flink, might need a bit of love. I know again, Fabian, you've got a PR outstanding in the operators repo.
Yeah, I went through your new docs, looking at the diffs, Fabian.
Yep.
And I can talk with you offline, but basically the plan stalls like Zookeeper shows complete, and then step Kafka in progress. Kafka never comes up. So I'm happy to work with you, however you'd like, if you have time. If not, yeah, we can talk.
Time for GitHub to break.
Yep, that's perfect. It also, like, in many ways, why that maybe doesn't come up could be that we're maybe using the wrong KUDO version. So this one was tested with 0.3.2, and maybe there were some new releases in that branch, but let's do that offline. Yesterday when I tested it exactly like this, it worked on my machine, but there are many environment variables or external stuff that we figured out. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, because I use the CRDs that you had there, and they're 0.3, so maybe I need to bump the version on those. I don't know.
Yep, let's have a look, and then also take our findings there, so we iron out the documentation more, so other people won't run into that as well.
Yep, and there are some parts of the documentation I saw, like even like just the graphic at the top,
Yep.
use an update, and I can't do Go, but I can do Google Slides. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving it love and looking at it. We need more people testing things. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
I'll take a run through this demo as well, because I know it sort of mirrors the one that we have for DCOS, which I touched fairly recently. So
and one goal with this one is also to make a blog post out of that. So all the feedback and things that you want to see in there, everything is appreciated.
Cool. Okay, in that case, we're closing in on the time that we've got. So the last section for this community meeting is just a general open discussion. If there's anybody who wants to raise that we haven't already covered. I guess not. That's pretty easy then. So at this point, we usually nominate somebody to be the host for the next one. Are there any volunteers for number 22?
Is it possible to do, like, how when Kubernetes does a release, they have the release manager and then they have like the shadow of the release manager? I apologize. I know I can't make every meeting, but can I like try to shadow and then learn how to host one of these meetings?
The best way to learn is by doing. So congratulations.
It sounds like you just volunteered.
That's a volunteer in my book.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, we'll see how it goes. No,
I like the idea of shadowing.
I mean, seriously, if I can manage it, then anyone can. I run out of excuses to not host. So yeah.
So the idea is a co-host. Yeah.
A comedy double act, you say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll stick you in the frame for that one then, Michael. There was some discussion earlier about maybe changing some of the times or alternating the meeting itself. I guess we'll have further discussion around that on Slack and come up with some agreements that works for everybody else in the community. Also
now with the new co-host or no host, if that time works for him as well, is also quite important.
Yeah. And do we usually ask for volunteers for a community shepherd for the week? So I did it last week, and it was basically I was just adding labels and just keeping an eye on things. So I think there wasn't really an awful lot for me to do this week. So I'm happy to do it again if nobody else wants to volunteer. Okay.
When you're doing bug grooming and stuff, if you want to ping me on Slack so I can just see how you do the categorization and train up a little bit on that, I'm happy to do that as well. So all I've been doing literally is the template obviously has the I see, okay,
a bunch of stuff in the top. So if people don't apply their own label, obviously we should have some automation in place that applies these automatically. So in a minute I'm the mechanical Turk that actually goes and just clicks on the labels and allocates those. That's it.
Cool.
But yeah. Okay, cool. In that case, I guess we'll wrap this up. Thanks again all for your time. And yeah, have fun for the rest of your birthday, Fabian.
Thank you, and thanks for hosting, Nick.
No worries. Cool. All right. Cheers, all.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good week. Birthday.
Woo!